Get the fundamentals down, and the level of everything you do will rise. This is a quote from Michael Jordan, one of the greatest basketball players of all time. And in this video, I'm going to be showing you how you can apply that quote to home bartending. For those of you who don't know, my name is Ron Virpin. I'm a full-time medical doctor, and I've been a home bartender for over 5 years now. During that time, I've learned how to make over 100 different cocktails, and I've thrown over 50 cocktail parties. Now I teach other busy professionals how to make cocktails at home. And essentially what I want to emphasize in this video is the fundamentals of cocktails is classic cocktails. There's three broad ranges of cocktails, and it really goes in a chronological order. The oldest is classic, then we have modern classic, and then finally craft cocktails. And the rough timeline of that is that classic cocktails come from the late 1800s and the first half of the 1900s. Modern classics come from 2000 onwards, and then craft cocktails are from this time period, meaning this year or within the last few years even. They haven't quite reached that status where they're considered modern classics yet. And we have this sort of gray zone in between from probably 1950 to 2000. There weren't too many great cocktails invented in that time, but there are some famous ones, like the Cosmopolitan or the Espresso Martini, which is one of the most popular cocktails out right now, was invented in that time as well. So those are the broad ranges, and there's that in-between zone, in between classic and modern classic. And in my opinion, classic cocktails are the absolute fundamentals of cocktails, because all of the later cocktails, the modern classics and the craft cocktails, essentially build off of that. So, for example, there is essentially a ladder of 3 different cocktails, and the oldest in that ladder is the whiskey sour. This is a classic cocktail from the probably the early 1900s, maybe late 1800s. Just 3 ingredients, quite simple recipe, just whiskey, lemon juice, simple syrup. And in my opinion, that's a cocktail that every single home bartender should learn within their first probably 6 months, at most within the first year as a home bartender, just because it's so fundamental. It's a sour cocktail. It uses whiskey, which is a very common ingredient in classic cocktails, and it's just simple to make. A lot of people like it, and it stood the test of time. Even in the year 2025, the whiskey sour is quite a popular cocktail. It's a cocktail that I find very enjoyable, and a lot of people that come over to my home bar, a lot of my friends and family enjoy the whiskey sour as well. And there are 2 more steps in that ladder. The next would be in the very early 2000s, there was a cocktail called the Gold Rush, and I've also made a video on the Gold Rush on my YouTube channel as well. And the Gold Rush, all it does is it makes it so that the whiskey has to be bourbon, whereas with the whiskey sour, you can use either rye or bourbon, and then it subs out the simple syrup for honey syrup. So just a few small changes, and in my opinion, it leads to a better cocktail. But in order to learn the Gold Rush and that whole thing, you have to really master the fundamental of the whiskey sour. And then the next step from the Gold Rush is the penicillin. In my opinion, probably one of my top 5 or 10 cocktails. I think it's just a better version of the whiskey sour. But what I'm trying to emphasize in this video is that you have to learn the whiskey sour first, because that is the fundamental. That is the fundamental for the penicillin. What the penicillin does is that it splits that whiskey base into using primarily a blended scotch, and then also a small component of an Islay scotch like Lafroig. And then it splits that syrup base between ginger and honey syrup, as opposed to just honey syrup like the Gold Rush, or just simple syrup like the standard whiskey old fashioned, or the whiskey sour, I mean. And then and it keeps the lemon juice the same. So it's a more complex, and in my opinion, a better version of a whiskey sour, but it really builds on those fundamentals that you have to learn with the whiskey sour. And there are countless more examples of modern classic and craft cocktails that build off of that original template. But what I'm trying to say in this video is you have to learn that template first. Because when you learn classic cocktails, and the reason I have this book out with me, the Cocktail Codex, is because this contains tons of recipes on the different classic cocktails out there. Really, it structures everything based on different categories of classic cocktails. For example, some of the main ones are the Martini, the Old Fashioned, and the Daiquiri. And essentially, in my opinion, those are all fundamental cocktails. I learned all of them within my first probably 3 months, maybe up to 6 months as a home bartender. And that's what you build off of. You have to learn these classic recipes first, because everything that comes later on all the modern classics, all the craft cocktails. And at some point, like if you're like myself, you're going to be making your own recipes. I have probably 2 or 3 different cocktails that I make on my own that are unique just to me. Those are recipes that I created. They're all built on classic cocktails as well. So that's why you have to learn it, because that's the fundamentals of home bartending. And the other reason I think classic cocktails are so important is something called the Lindy Effect, which is essentially saying that the Lindy Effect applies to all non-living things, mainly concepts and ideas, and in this case, recipes. And it says that essentially what it says is that if something's been around for a very long time, that means it's still going to be around for a very long time. And that's in contrast to living things like humans, plants, animals. If living things have been around for a long time, that generally means that they're going to be dying off soon. It's the opposite really for concepts, ideas, and recipes. So these classic recipes have been around for oftentimes 100 or even more than 100 years. And the thing is, they're still popular in 2025. You know, the Negroni's been around for probably over 100 years. People still drink that today. Whiskey sour, people still drink that today. You know, the Moscow Mule, I believe, was created in the 1930s, and people still drink the Moscow Mule today. It's still quite popular. So these drinks have stood the test of time. And if you're like myself and you're getting into this journey earlier on in your life, like in your 20s, like I did, or even in your 30s, then you know this is a hobby that you want to continue on for many, many years, probably even decades. And you want to make sure that the drinks that you're learning now will still be popular. And I can pretty much guarantee that the old fashioned, the whiskey sour, the Daiquiri, the Negroni, those are still going to be popular in 2050 and 2075. And, you know, with modern classics and craft cocktails, as much as I love some of them, like the Oaxacan Old Fashioned or the Penicillin, I don't know if those are going to be popular in 2050 or in 2075 or any time in the future, really. I know that they're popular right now, but I can't guarantee that they're going to be around for a long time. You know, some of those have been around for 20, 25 years, so they're more likely. But, you know, what's even more likely to still be around is something like the Negroni, which has been around for over 100 years. So for that reason, I think that's just another reason why I think classic cocktails are so important. If you're early on in this journey, you're just getting started out, or it's your first year as a home bartender, really focus on just learning the classic cocktail recipes. Get a book like this, The Cocktail Codex, which really goes over the different classic cocktails. And I also have several classic cocktail tutorials. That's the main type of video that I want to be doing, especially early on in my own YouTube journey. This is still the first year of me on YouTube. So I want to do most of my cocktail specific tutorials. I want to focus them specifically on classic cocktails. And you know, there's still a few fundamental ones that I haven't done the martini yet, or the old fashioned. So those are going to be coming up hopefully in the near future. So that's all I have for today. If you found the advice helpful, please click the subscribe button. I really do 2 types of videos on this channel. One is going to be tutorials on how to make specific cocktails, and then the other type of video is like this one, where I just give general advice from my own experience and my own journey as a home bartender, and I tell you guys things that I feel will help you become better home bartenders. Anyways, that's all I have for today. Thank you. Cheers.